Today we're uncovering 20 cases that left trails of blood across history. This is Crime Lens. If you find value in these deep dives, show your support by liking this video. Now let's get into our first case. Case 1. Nasra Al-Anizi, August 15, 2009. Al Jarrah Province, Kuwait. Over 200 women and children packed into a wedding tent to celebrate a joyous occasion. The bride was radiant. Mothers wrapped gifts. Little girls ran between the tables. Then the flames came. Nasra Yusuf Mohammed Al-Anizi was 23 years old and burning with jealousy. Her husband, Zayed Zafiri, was taking a second wife, a legal practice in Kuwait, but one that destroyed Nasra emotionally. For months, she'd suffered what psychologists would later call intense trauma over the polygamy. She felt disrespected, humiliated, replaced. That afternoon, witnesses saw Nasra pouring petrol around the highly flammable marquee tent. Within 3 minutes of ignition, the entire structure was engulfed. Temperatures inside reached over 500 degrees Celsius. There was only one exit. Panicked women and children stampeded toward it, trampling each other in desperation. The scene was apocalyptic. 58 people burned to death or died from smoke inhalation and crush injuries. 90 others were wounded. Among the dead were the new bride's mother and sister. Bodies were so charred they required DNA testing for identification. Fire Chief Jassem Al-Mansouri described finding shoes stuck to the ground where victims had been trampled at the exit. Nasra was arrested the next day. Initially, she confessed, telling police she wanted revenge for her husband's bad treatment. At trial, she recanted, claiming she'd only sprayed the tent with cursed water, a spiritual hex, not petrol. Her maid testified she'd seen Nasra pouring the accelerant. On March 30th, 2010, Judge Adel Al-Sager sentenced Nasra to death by hanging. The appeals court upheld it. On June 12, 2011, Kuwait's Supreme Court made history by upholding a death sentence for a woman for the first time ever. As of February 2026, Nasra awaits execution, the deadliest mass murder by a woman in modern Middle Eastern history. Case 2. Sarah Al-Drete, May 6, 1989. Mexico City, Mexico. The rituals required screaming. In Adolfo Constanzo, the cult leader Sara Maria Aldrete Villarreal, worshipped as a god, believed victims had to die screaming to appease the spirits. And Sara, known as La Madrina, or the godmother, helped him make it happen. Sara was a 6'1" honor student studying physical education at Texas Southmost College when she met Constanzo in 1987. He cut off her car in traffic, introduced himself, and noted they shared the same birthday as his mother. Within months, Sarah had transformed from a clean-cut college student into an overnight expert on witchcraft who supervised human sacrifices. The cult's Nganga, a cast-iron cauldron, contained human brains, hearts, skulls, teeth, blood, a goat's head with horns, and cheap rum. Between 1987 and 1989, Sarah participated in the torture and murder of at least 15 people, including rival drug dealers and 21-year-old University of Texas student Mark Kilroy, abducted during spring break in March 1989. On April 11, 1989, police discovered 12 bodies at Rancho Santa Elena outside Matamoros. The stench of decomposing organs hit investigators before they even reached the blood-splattered altar. Sarah and Constanzo fled to Mexico City. On May 6th, police arrived at their apartment building on an unrelated search. Constanzo panicked and opened fire, triggering a 45-minute shootout involving 180 officers. As the walls closed in, Constanzo threw bundles of money out the window, screaming, "No one's going to have this money!" Then he ordered his follower to kill him and another cult member. After the executions, Sarah was arrested. At trial, Sarah claimed she was a hostage who didn't know about the killings. Prosecutors proved she was second in command who actively participated in rituals. She was convicted and sentenced to 62 years. As of February 2026, Sarah Aldrade remains incarcerated in Mexico. U.S. authorities have stated they will prosecute her for Mark Kilroy's murder if she's ever released. Case 3. Maria del Rocio Alfaro, June 15, 1990. Anaheim Hills, California. 9-year-old Autumn Wallace was home alone, cutting out paper dolls and waiting for her mother to return from work. When she heard the knock on the door, she recognized the woman on the other side. It was Rosie, her older sister's friend from high school, a woman who'd been a guest in their home many times. Autumn unlocked the door. Maria del Rocio Alfaro was 18 years old, a single mother of 4 children, and desperately addicted to heroin and cocaine. She was shooting up as many as 50 times a day. That afternoon, she needed money for her next fix. She knew the Wallace family, she knew their routine, and she believed no one would be home. But Autumn was there. Rosie asked to use the bathroom. As she walked through the house, she grabbed a knife from the kitchen drawer. She went to the bathroom at the back and called Autumn, asking for help, cleaning her eyelash curlers. When the little girl entered, Rosie attacked. She stabbed Autumn Wallace 57 times. The 9-year-old bled to death on the bathroom floor while Rosie ransacked the house, stealing a television, VCR, clothes, typewriter, telephone, and Nintendo set. She sold everything for $300. When Linda Wallace came home from work, she found her daughter in a pool of blood. 10 days later, police arrested Rosie. Her fingerprints were in the bathroom. Her shoe print, stained with Autumn's blood, matched the shoes she was wearing. During a 4.5-hour interrogation, she confessed, "I stabbed her, 'cause she knew who I was." At trial, prosecutors displayed 109 pieces of evidence. The jury convicted her in March 1992. A second jury unanimously recommended death. On July 14, 1992, Judge Theodore Millard called it the most senseless, brutal, vicious, and callous murder he'd ever known. Maria del Rocio Alfaro became the first woman in Orange County sentenced to death. As of February 2026, she remains on California's death row. Case 4, Gwen Aguilar, September 7, 2005, Singapore. The head was discovered first. At 12:45 p.m., a street cleaner found a red plastic bag next to Orchard Road MRT station, one of Singapore's busiest shopping districts. Inside, unwrapped in a September 8th edition of the Straits Times, were a severed head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. At 6:10 p.m., someone reported an unattended suitcase swarming with flies at McRitchie Reservoir. Police opened it and found a female torso wearing only a brown bra and panties. The limbs bore bite marks. The suitcase had a luggage tag addressed to Mr. Prakash Malia at the Sunglade condominium. When officers arrived at the apartment, they found 29-year-old Gwen Garlejo Aguilar, a Filipina domestic worker, acting nervous. Bloodstains were under her mattress. An 18-centimeter meat cleaver and an axe were in the kitchen cabinet. Both weapons didn't belong to the household. At 12:40 a.m. on September 10th, Aguilar was arrested. victim was Jane Parangon La Puebla, Gwen's best friend and fellow domestic worker, and the two women treated each other as sisters. But a financial dispute over $2,000 had turned deadly. On September 7th, Jane visited Gwen to discuss the debt. They argued, they fought. Gwen bit Jane's arm, then smothered her with a pillow until she passed out. When Jane regained consciousness, Gwen strangled her to death. The next day, while her employers were out, Gwen went to Mustafa Center and bought a chopper, axe, gloves, and garbage bags. She dismembered Jane's body in her bedroom, replaced the blood-stained bedding, and disposed of the parts across Singapore. At trial, psychiatric reports showed Gwen suffered from depression, amounting to abnormality of mind. The murder charge was reduced to culpable homicide. On May 29, 2006, Justice Fuske Raja sentenced her to 10 years, stating, "Why would anyone in their right frame of mind commit such an abominable act?" She was released early for good behavior and deported to the Philippines. Her current status and location remain unknown. Case 5. Jodi Arias, June 4, 2008, Mesa, Arizona. Travis Alexander was a 30-year-old motivational speaker and salesman with a bright future. His ex-girlfriend Jodi Arias was obsessed. After their breakup in June 2007, Jodi claimed Travis was abusive. Travis claimed Jodi was a stalker. The truth was somewhere dark and violent. On June 2nd, Jodi rented a white Ford Focus in California, telling the rental company she'd only drive locally. She bought 2 5-gallon gas cans, sunblock, and facial cleanser. The next day in Pasadena, she made 2 gas purchases 4 minutes apart. One with a credit card, one with cash. She was preparing for a 2,800-mile trip, and she didn't want anyone to track her. At 1:40 p.m. on June 4th, recovered photos show Jodi and Travis in sexually suggestive poses inside his Mesa home. At 5:29 p.m., the last photo of Travis alive captures him in the shower, water cascading down his face. Moments later, the attack began. Jodi stabbed Travis 27 to 29 times. She slashed his throat so deeply she severed his jugular vein, carotid artery, and windpipe. She shot him in the head with a .25 caliber gun. His hands showed defensive wounds. He fought to survive. Blood pooled in the hallway. A damaged camera knocked around during the violence inadvertently photographed the ceiling and the back of Travis's head as he was dragged across the floor. Jodi fled. On June 5th, she arrived in Utah to meet a man named Ryan Burns, acting as if nothing had happened. A police officer pulled her over because her license plate was upside down. She told Burns her hand injuries came from a restaurant accident. On June 7th, she returned the rental car with 2,800 miles on it, missing floor mats and Kool-Aid-like stains on the seats. Friends found Travis's body on June 9th after he'd been dead for 5 days. When questioned, Jodi gave 3 different stories. She wasn't there. Masked intruders killed him. Then finally, she killed him in self-defense. At trial in 2013, Jodi testified for 18 days, claiming Travis was a deviant who attacked her. The jury didn't believe her. On May 8, 2013, Jodi Ann Arias was found guilty of first-degree murder. Minutes after the verdict, she told reporters she'd rather get death than life in prison. She was placed on suicide watch. As of February 2026, Jodi remains incarcerated. Case 6. Sada Abe, May 18, 1936, Tokyo, Japan. Sada Abe couldn't let him go, not even in death. Her lover, 42-year-old restaurant owner Kachizo Ishida, had consumed her completely. Their marathon sexual encounters lasted days. On May 16th, they experimented with erotic asphyxiation using an obi sash during orgasm. It gave Sada an idea. On May 18th, around 2 a.m., after Ishida had taken 30 sedative tablets and fallen asleep, Sada wrapped the sash twice around his neck and strangled him. She watched him die. Then she picked up a kitchen knife. Sada severed Ishida's penis and scrotum. Using his blood, she wrote on his left thigh, Sada, Kichi Futari Kiri. Sada and Kichi, together. She carved the character for her name into his left arm. She put on his underwear, left the inn at 8 a.m., and told staff not to disturb him. For 2 days, Sada wandered Tokyo with Ishida's genitalia wrapped in a magazine cover inside her handbag. She later admitted to unwrapping the parts, gazing at them, and putting his penis in her mouth. When asked why she took them, she said, "Because I couldn't take his head or body with me. I wanted to take the part of him that brought back the most vivid memories." The discovery of Ishida's mutilated body triggered the Abe Sada panic, a massive manhunt across Tokyo. On May 20th, police found her at a Shinagawa inn, drinking beer and relaxing after watching a movie. The severed parts were in her bag. Sada was convicted of murder in the second degree and mutilation of a corpse. Sentenced to 6 years, her sentence was commuted in 1940, and she was released in May 1941, exactly 5 years after the murder. In 1969, she appeared in a documentary. In 1970, she disappeared from public life. No confirmed death date exists. Rumors suggest she entered a convent or died by suicide. The woman who killed for love simply vanished. Case 7, Wanda Jean Allen, December 2nd, 1988, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Gloria Jean Leathers was terrified. Her girlfriend, Wanda Jean Allen, was following her to the police station. They'd just had a violent argument at a grocery store that required a police escort to separate them. Now, as Gloria's mother pulled into the village police department parking lot, Wanda pulled in right behind them. Gloria stepped out of the car. Wanda confronted her, and then Wanda pulled out a .38 caliber handgun and fired a single shot into Gloria's abdomen at close range, right in front of the police station. 2 officers and a dispatcher heard the shot. Gloria identified Wanda as the shooter, before she died 3 days later at the hospital. This wasn't Wanda's first time killing a lover. In 1981, she'd shot her girlfriend, Detra Pettis, at point-blank range after pistol whipping her. Forensic evidence contradicted Wanda's claim of self-defense, but she struck a deal. Guilty to manslaughter, sentenced to 4 years, served only 2. Now 7 years later, she'd killed again. At trial, prosecutors called her a remorseless liar and a monster, emphasizing her dominant, aggressive personality. And her court-appointed attorney was paid only $800 and failed to investigate evidence of brain damage and an IQ of 69, the upper limit of intellectual disability. The jury rejected her self-defense claim and took only 2 hours to recommend death. Wanda spent 12 years on death row at Mabel Bassett Correctional Center, becoming a model prisoner and born-again Christian who led worship services for other inmates. On January 11, 2001, Wanda Jean Allen became the first black woman executed in the United States since 1954, and the first woman executed in Oklahoma since 1903. Over 200 inmates sang and prayed when her final appeal was denied. Reverend Jesse Jackson was arrested protesting at the prison. Her last words, spoken from the gurney at 9:21 p.m. were, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." She was 41 years old. In her execution, sparked national debate about executing people with intellectual disabilities, a practice later banned by the Supreme Court in 2002. Case 8, Nicole Abu Sharif, March 15, 2007, Villa Park, Illinois. Rebecca Becky Klein thought she was in the perfect relationship. She'd been with Nicole Abu Sharif for 7 to 8 years. They lived together as domestic partners. Friends and family saw them as an ideal couple. Becky had no idea Nicole had been cheating on her with a 19-year-old girl she'd met on MySpace. Nicole told her new lover, Rose Sodaro, that Becky was just her roommate. She told Rose she'd been a firefighter during 9/11 and was dying of liver cancer, taking her to a funeral home to pick out a casket. It was all lies, but the biggest lie was still to come. On March 15th, Nicole murdered Becky by suffocation, and that same evening she took Rose bowling in Tinley Park. Then they returned to the Villa Park home, where Becky's body was hidden in the garage, and had sex. The next day, Becky failed to show up for work. Nicole drove around the neighborhood and discovered Becky's white work van parked on the roadside with keys in the ignition. She called police to report Becky missing. On March 17th, a violent crimes task force searched the detached garage. Inside the trunk of Nicole's 1966 Ford Mustang, her baby, they found Becky's body. She was bound at the hands and feet with duct tape, gagged and blindfolded with bandanas, with a plastic garbage bag secured over her head. The evidence was overwhelming. 25 of Nicole's fingerprints were on the garbage bag. Her DNA was on the bandanas and duct tape, and only 2 keys existed for the Mustang's trunk. Both were in Nicole's possession. Her co-worker, Robert Edwards, admitted they were drug buddies who shared sexual fantasies. At trial, Nicole's defense argued her bad back and smaller size made it impossible to move 160-pound Becky alone. The jury didn't buy it. On May 5, 2009, after 13 hours of deliberation, they found her guilty of first-degree murder. Judge John Kinsella sentenced her to 50 years. Nicole must serve 100% of her sentence. Her earliest possible release would make her at least 71 years old. As of February 2026, she remains incarcerated at Dwight Correctional Center in Illinois. Case 9, Brittany Adams, July 17, 2013, Lawrence, Kansas. It was 6:20 p.m. when Brittany Marie Adams knocked on Gary Eden's front door. The 51-year-old man had no idea who she was or why she was at his home on North Michigan Street. Adams was looking for information about 2 girls who'd allegedly abandoned her in Topeka and stolen her car. She thought Edens knew where they were. 7-year-old Jeremy Edens watched as his father opened the door. He watched the confrontation escalate. Then he watched Brittany Adams pull out a gun and shoot his father in the back of the head just outside their front door. Gary Edens collapsed. Adams and her driver, 29-year-old Jonathan Rush, fled the scene immediately. Within 1 hour, police located and arrested both suspects in southeast Topeka. Over the next 48 hours, Lawrence Police Detective M.T. Brown interviewed Adams multiple times, but the most damning testimony came from her cellmate, Jessica Eastman, who shared a cell with Adams for 2.5 days. According to Eastman, Adams bragged about the murder. She said she blew his brains out, Eastman testified. Even more horrifying, Adams had allegedly instructed Rush to kill Gary's young son Jeremy as well, to eliminate the witness. Based on this testimony, District Attorney Charles Branson upgraded the charge from second-degree to premeditated first-degree murder in December 2013. But in January 2014, Adams accepted a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to intentional second-degree murder and no contest to 2 counts of felony criminal threats against corrections officers. On February 28, 2014, District Judge Sally D. Picorni sentenced Adams. She faced between 12 and 54 years for the murder, plus additional time for the threats. As part of the plea agreement, she waived her right to file motions or request probation. As of February 2026, Brittany Marie Adams remains incarcerated in the Kansas Department of Corrections, serving her sentence for executing a man in front of his 7-year-old son. Case 10. Margaret Allen, known as Bill. August 28, 1948. Rawtenstall, England. Margaret Allen wanted everyone to call her Bill. The 42-year-old woman had denied her femininity since childhood, cut her hair short, wore men's clothing, and took jobs typically reserved for men, loading coal, repairing houses, working as a bus conductor. She'd even been fired from that job for physically abusing passengers who didn't sit down fast enough. In 1935, Allen claimed she'd undergone an operation to change from a woman to a man, though historians dispute this given medical limitations of the era. What's certain is that after her mother died in 1943, Allen became deeply depressed, neglected herself, and lived alone in a dilapidated building that had once served as the Rawtenstall Police Headquarters. On August 28, 1948, 68-year-old Nancy Ellen Chadwick knocked on Allen's door to borrow a cup of sugar. Allen would later say she was in a funny mood. She saw a coal hammer in the kitchen and, on the spur of the moment, struck Chadwick with it. When the elderly woman screamed, Allen kept hitting her with the pointed end of the hammer. At 3 a.m. on August 29th, Allen moved Chadwick's body outside. It was discovered on the road in front of her house. Over the next few days, Allen was remarkably talkative with reporters and pub customers. It's bragging that she was the last person to see the old woman alive. She even pulled a detective's sleeve to point out Chadwick's bag floating in the River Irwell. On September 1st, police found bloodstains in Allen's home. She confessed immediately. "I was in a funny mood. On the spur of the moment, I hit her. She gave me a shout, and that seemed to start me off more." Allen's trial at Liverpool Assizes lasted only 5 hours on December 8, 1948. The jury took 15 minutes to convict her. A petition organized by her friend gained only 162 signatures from a town of 30,000 people. On January 12, 1949, Margaret Allen was executed by hanging at Strangeways Prison. In her final days, she remained belligerent, kicking away her last meal of scrambled eggs and shouting, "At least no one else will enjoy that meal." She expressed no remorse on the scaffold. She was 42 years old. Quick pause. I'm curious, where in the world are you watching Crime Lens from today? Drop your city and country below. And hey, if you're hooked and want a part 2, let me know by typing "waiting for part 2." Your comments are the best motivator to get that script started. Case 11. Angelica Alvarez. November 14th, 2006. Elkhart, Indiana. While her 4 children slept peacefully in their beds, Angelica Salazar Alvarez made a decision that would destroy everything. The 29-year-old mother had been spiraling. Her husband was leaving. Depression consumed her. And she'd just been released from a psychiatric hospital, basically untreated. That morning, she convinced her husband Fernando to call in sick to work. She needed him home, she said, for a cancer biopsy appointment in Kingston. It was a lie, just like the breast cancer diagnosis she'd been faking for months. As dawn approached, Angelica led her sleeping children to the basement. Daniel, age 4, Jessica, age 2, Gonzalo, age 6, Jennifer, age 8. She gave them sleeping pills. Then one by one, she strangled each child with her bare hands. When her 16-year-old son came downstairs to get ready for school at 8 a.m., he found all 4 of his siblings dead on the basement floor. Angelica had tried to hang herself with an electrical cord, but it failed. She swallowed sleeping pills instead. When first responders arrived, they thought she was dead too. Until 45 minutes later, someone detected a faint pulse. At her funeral eulogy for the children she'd murdered, Angelica told mourners they would all be together again one day in heaven. Her defense attorney later explained her twisted logic. She believed the children would be better off in heaven than growing up without their father. Toxicology reports proved the children weren't drugged during the murders. They felt everything. Prosecutor Curtis Hill called it systematic execution. Angelica pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. On September 23, 2007, she was sentenced to life without parole. She was taken into the courtroom in handcuffs on the anniversary of her son's birthday. Case 12, Christy Ann Abrahams. July 18, 2010, Hebersham, Australia. 6-year-old Keisha Weipert was already living in hell. Her mother, Christy Ann Abrahams, beat her regularly, so often that neighbors noticed the child would flinch whenever Christy simply raised her hand to speak. Keisha had suffered sustained abuse her entire short life, but the violence escalated dramatically in her final 18 months. On that winter night, Christy tried to force Keisha into pajamas. When the child resisted, Christy struck her. The little girl's body went limp. She felt like jelly in Christy's hands. In the shower, Keisha stopped responding entirely. Christy's boyfriend, Robert Smith, heard a loud bang from the bedroom. He found Keisha unconscious. Then he went to bed. The next morning, he went to work. When Smith returned home the following day, Keisha was dead. For 3 days, her tiny body sat inside a suitcase in their unit. Then Christy and Smith took a taxi to bushland in Shalvey. Smith doused Keisha's body in petrol, set it on fire, and buried what remained in a shallow grave. They threw away their clothes, shoes, and SIM cards. On August 1st, Christy called 000. She claimed Keisha had been abducted from her bedroom during the night. For 8 months, she maintained the lie. She appeared on television begging for her daughter's return. The entire time, Keisha's charred remains were decomposing in the dirt. Police finally announced they believed Keisha was dead in January 2011. On April 22nd, what would have been Keisha's 7th birthday, Christy and Smith were arrested at 1 a.m. while visiting the burial site. An autopsy revealed 10 separate injuries to Keisha's head and jaw, including fractured teeth from blows comparable to adult sporting injuries. Christy Abrahams was convicted of murder and sentenced to 21 years and 6 months. As she was led from the courtroom, former neighbors hissed and called her a putrid dog. As of February 2026, Christie remains incarcerated. She will be eligible for parole in 2027. Case 13. Margaret Ann Allen, February 8, 2005, Titusville, Florida. Margaret Ann Allen had lived a hard life in what relatives called the ghetto, a crime-infested neighborhood where guns and drugs were everywhere. Her father was mostly absent. Her mother worked at an aerospace plant. Both of Margaret's brothers were in prison. Her own son and daughter were also behind bars for drug and gun charges. At 38 years old, Margaret was angry. And when 300-pound Wenda Wright, her friend and housekeeper, couldn't account for a missing purse containing $2,000, that anger turned lethal. Margaret ordered her nephew Quentin to help hold Wenda down. She used a cloth belt to bind Wenda's legs while Quentin held her hands. Then Margaret knelt on Wenda's neck and poured bleach, nail polish remover, and ammonia over her face and into her mouth. Wenda gagged and begged for her life. Margaret tried to cover Wenda's mouth with tape, but the chemicals made it too wet to stick. So she grabbed a belt and strangled Wenda for 3 full minutes. When Wenda finally stopped moving and lost control of her bladder, Margaret knew she was dead. 2 days later, Margaret picked up Quentin again. He had to help dispose of the body, she said. They drove to a dirt road off State Road 46 and dug a shallow grave. Because Wenda weighed over 300 pounds, the hole was too small. James Martin, Margaret's roommate, jumped on a piece of plywood to force the body down into the earth. The murder was reported by witnesses within days. Quentin led police to the grave. An autopsy confirmed nearly a dozen blows to Wenda's face, arm, chest, and knees, delivered before the strangulation. The belt had been tightened so severely that blood flow to Wenda's brain completely stopped. Toxicology also revealed cocaine intoxication as a contributing factor. A jury voted 12-0 for death. On May 19, 2011, Circuit Judge George Maxwell sentenced Margaret Allen to death. As of the most recent records, she remains on Florida's death row, one of only 3 women awaiting execution in the state. Case 14. Brenda Andrew, November 20th, 2001, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Brenda Evers. Andrew was a Sunday school teacher, a devoted Christian, a mother, and she was planning to murder her husband for money. Brenda and Rob Andrew had been married for 17 years. But Brenda had started an affair with James Pavat, a life insurance agent from their church. In March 2001, the lovers allegedly tried to forge Rob's signature on a life insurance ownership form. In late October, someone cut the brake lines on Rob's car. Rob told friends he believed Brenda and Pavat were trying to kill him. On the evening of November 20th, Rob arrived at the family home to pick up the children for Thanksgiving. Brenda asked him to help light the pilot light on the garage furnace. When he bent down, she shot him twice with a 16-gauge shotgun. Then she shot herself in the arm with a .22 caliber gun to make it look like they'd been attacked by intruders. Brenda called 911. When paramedics arrived, they found Rob dead in a pool of blood. Brenda had a superficial wound. She told police 2 masked men attacked them. But investigators found inconsistencies everywhere. Brenda's gunshot wound was fired at close range, not from a distance. Spent shells were found on top of the family van and in a neighbor's bedroom. someone had entered the neighbor's attic through a closet where .22 caliber bullets were recovered. Brenda didn't attend Rob's funeral. Instead, she and Pavat fled to Mexico with the children. When they ran out of money 2 months later, they tried to re-enter the U.S. and were arrested at the border. At trial, prosecutors opened Brenda's suitcase and held up her thong underwear and lace bra. They called her a slut puppy and a hoochie, arguing no grieving widow would pack such items. New witnesses testified about her short skirts and tight dresses. The jury convicted her in 2004 and sentenced her to death. In January 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court vacated a previous ruling, ordering a federal court to determine if the slut-shaming violated her due process rights. As of February 2026, Brenda Andrew remains the only woman on Oklahoma's death row, still fighting for her life. Case 15. Wendy Andriano, October 8, 2000. Ahwatukee, Arizona. Joe Andriano was dying. The 33-year-old had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and was so weak from chemotherapy he could barely stand. His wife, Wendy, was supposed to be caring for him. Instead, she was researching how to kill him. In the months before Joe's death, Wendy attempted to secure life insurance policies worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. She told agents Joe didn't have cancer. She asked friends to pose as Joe during phone screenings. She researched poisons on the internet and ordered sodium azide, a toxic chemical used in pesticides, shipping it to a separate business address to avoid detection. In the early hours of October 8th, Wendy began slipping sodium azide capsules to Joe. At 2:15 a.m., she called a coworker asking her to watch the children so she could take Joe to the doctor. When the coworker arrived, Wendy met her outside and said, "I have a problem. My husband's on the floor dying and I haven't called 911 yet." Inside, the coworker found Joe in the fetal position, vomiting and struggling to breathe. Wendy finally called 911, but when paramedics arrived, she refused to let them in. She claimed Joe had a do not resuscitate order and wanted to die at home. With the paramedics left. During the next hour, Wendy murdered her husband. She beat him at least 23 times in the head with a wooden bar stool. Then she stabbed him in the neck with a 13-inch kitchen knife. She later claimed he stabbed himself, but investigators determined it was homicide. When Wendy called 911 a second time, she said she'd killed Joe in self-defense. At trial, Wendy testified for 9 days. She claimed Joe went berserk when she admitted to a one-night stand. She said he tried to strangle her with a phone cord, then stabbed himself. The prosecution argued she killed him out of greed and lust, tired of caring for a dying man while wanting to collect on a potential $20 million medical malpractice lawsuit. On November 18, 2004, Wendy Elizabeth Andriano was found guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to death by lethal injection on December 22, 2004. As of February 2026, Wendy remains on death row at Arizona State Prison Complex in Perryville. Case 16, Tracy Andrews. December 1st, 1996. Alva Church, Worcestershire, England. The nation watched as Tracy Andrews sobbed on live television holding the hand of her fiancé's grieving mother. Lee Harvey had been brutally murdered in a road rage attack, she said. A fat man with staring eyes, drunk or drugged, had gotten out of a Ford Sierra and stabbed Lee to death on a dark country lane. Tracy had tried to stop him. The bruises on her face proved it. It was all a lie. Lee and Tracy's relationship had been toxic from the start. Both were jealous, Both were possessive. Police were frequently called to their home for domestic disputes. On one occasion, Tracy bit Lee on the neck. Family members had begged them to separate. On the evening of December 1st, the couple went to a pub to try to reconcile. On the drive home, another argument erupted. The car stopped on a lonely lane. What happened next was pure rage. Tracy stabbed Lee 42 times with a penknife. The wounds covered his back, throat, and chest. The fatal blow severed an artery in his neck. A neighbor heard the commotion and ran outside to find Tracy standing over Lee's bloodied body. For 2 weeks, police conducted a massive manhunt for the road rage killer based on Tracy's description. But forensic evidence told a different story. The car was neatly parked, not stopped in a panic. Lee's blood was on Tracy's clothing in a cast-off pattern, proving she'd been wielding the knife. And the murder weapon was linked directly to her. At trial in July 1997, Tracy maintained her innocence. The jury didn't believe her. She was convicted of murder and sentenced to life with a minimum of 14 years. While in prison, she underwent jaw realignment surgery on the NHS, sparking public outrage. She was released in 2011 after serving her minimum sentence. Tracy changed her name to Jenna Stevens, remarried, and moved to a secret location. The woman who stood on national television and lied about murdering her fiancé walks free today. Case 17. Jane Andrews. September 17, 2000. Fulham, West London, England. Jane Andrews had lived a fairy tale life. For 9 years, she'd been the personal dresser to Sarah, the Duchess of York, mixing with royalty and the wealthy elite. But when that job ended, Jane struggled to find her place. She met Tom Cressman, a dashing millionaire and former stockbroker, and thought she'd found her happily ever after. For 2 years, Tom financed Jane's lavish lifestyle. They vacationed in Italy and at the Cressman family villa on the French Riviera. Jane gave Tom an ultimatum: propose within 6 months. They looked at houses together in the Cotswolds, but during their September 2000 vacation, Tom told Jane he had no intention of marrying her. On the flight back to London, they argued. Jane made phone calls claiming the relationship was over to goad him. The next morning, September 17th, the argument continued. Tom called 999, telling the operator, "We are rowing and someone is going to get hurt. If we don't have somebody here soon, somebody is." Jane later claimed that after that call, Tom tied her hand to the bed and anally raped her. Prosecutors contested this claim. What's certain is that while Tom was in bed, Jane grabbed his cricket bat and smashed him over the head. Then she stabbed him in the chest with a kitchen knife. Tom Cressman, 39, died in his bed. Jane fled. She sent text messages to friends asking about Tom's whereabouts to create an alibi. After being untraceable for days, police found her in Cornwall. She'd overdosed on pills in a suicide attempt, but survived. At trial in May 2001, Jane claimed she was a victim of domestic and sexual abuse. She testified that Tom had sexual obsessions and had previously broken her arm. The prosecution argued the motive was a woman scorned, pure rage, that he refused to marry her. The jury convicted her by an 11-1 majority after 12 hours of deliberation. Judge Michael Hyam sentenced her to life, stating, "In killing the man you loved, you ended his life and ruined your own." In 2009, Jane walked out of an open prison and was missing for 3 days before being captured. Her parole bid was refused in 2012 due to lack of remorse. As of the most recent update, Jane Andrews remains incarcerated. Case 18. Teresa Alvarez. November 10th, 2011, Detroit, Michigan. Margaret Theut was a saint. The 71-year-old retired GM secretary had no blood relatives. She'd been adopted herself. But 17 years earlier, she'd saved 2 homeless children from the streets. When their mother died and they had nowhere to go, Margaret and her neighbor adopted them. Margaret took in the boy, Jesus. Her friend took the girl, Teresa. Teresa Alvarez grew up, graduated high school, and became a manager at Taco Bell. But in 2011, she was convicted of embezzling nearly $2,000 from the restaurant and placed on probation. She needed money, and she knew exactly where to get it. Margaret had been saving thousands of dollars to donate to charity. Teresa spent weeks planning how to take it. On November 10th, she murdered the woman who'd saved her life. When Margaret failed to show up for lunch on November 14th, a neighbor went to check on her. The gate was unlocked. The TV was on. Margaret's dog was alone inside, something Margaret would never do. Her tan Chevrolet Impala was missing. Days later, the car was found 8 blocks away in the possession of Teresa's boyfriend. Teresa told friends Margaret had committed suicide by overdosing on pills. She got dressed up and told people she was attending a fake funeral. In May 2012, a woman hunting for mushrooms near the Rouge River found human bones wrapped in a bathrobe and blankets. Dental records confirmed it was Margaret Theut. Teresa was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The irony was unbearable. Margaret had first found Teresa as a homeless child in Rouge Park, the same park where Teresa dumped her body decades later. On December 12, 2013, Judge Mark T. Slavins sentenced Teresa Alvarez to life in prison without parole. He called it a betrayal of the woman who rescued her. As of February 2026, Teresa remains incarcerated in a Michigan state prison. Case 19. Catherine Andrus. September 24, 2009. Port Hope, Ontario, Canada. Catherine Donna Mary Andrus had been lying for months. She told everyone, her common-law husband Michel, her teenage son, even their friends, that she was being treated for breast cancer. It was all fake. Just like the tax refund she told Michel they were getting. In reality, they owed $5,000. The couple's finances were in ruins. Credit cards frozen. Utility disconnection notices piling up. Property taxes in arrears. Catherine's gambling problem had made everything worse. And now Michel was going to find out the truth. September 24th was their son's 16th birthday. The next morning, Catherine convinced Michel to call in sick to work. She needed him to take her to Kingston for a cancer biopsy, she said. Another lie. At 6 a.m., while Michel slept in their bed, Catherine removed all her clothing. She didn't want blood on her clothes. Then she picked up an aluminum baseball bat and beat Michel at least 5 times in the head. Any one of those blows could have killed him. Catherine showered. She used paper towels to clean the blood. She staged the bedroom to look like a robbery, scattering items and removing Michel's wallet. Then she left for her shift at Tim Hortons, stopping on the way to throw the bat and bloody towels in a ditch. At 8 a.m., their 16-year-old son walked into the bedroom to get ready for school. He found his father dead. At Michel's funeral, Catherine delivered a moving eulogy, telling mourners they would one day be together again. For a year, she maintained her innocence. Then an undercover officer led her to confess. She was arrested on September 13th, 2010. Exactly 1 year after the murder, Catherine pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She stood to gain $370,000 from life insurance and pension payouts. On her 53rd birthday, the same age Michelle was when she killed him, Judge E.B. Minden sentenced her to life with no parole for 12 years. Catherine became eligible for parole on September 13th, 2022. Her current status is unknown. Case 20. Mikkel Anderson, December 24, 2007, Carnation, Washington. Christmas Eve should have been a celebration. Instead, it became a massacre. Michelle Kristen Anderson, 29, felt disrespected. Her parents, Wayne and Judy, were pressuring her and her boyfriend, Joseph McEnroe, to pay rent for the mobile home on their property. Her brother Scott owed her $40,000 and hadn't paid it back. Michelle felt like her family didn't care about her, so she made a decision. If they didn't show her respect by Christmas Eve, she'd kill them all. Over the summer, Michelle and McEnroe bought handguns from a pawn shop, a 9mm and a .357 caliber Magnum. On Christmas Eve, as dusk fell, they armed themselves and drove 200 yards to her parents' small white house. Inside, Judy was wrapping Christmas presents for her grandchildren. McEnroe distracted her in the back room while Michelle confronted her father Wayne in the living room. Michelle fired her 9mm but missed. Wayne turned, and McEnroe shot him in the head. Judy began screaming. McEnroe shot her. She kept screaming, so he apologized and shot her again, this time in the head. They dragged the bodies to an outdoor shed. They cleaned the blood with towels and blankets and burned evidence in a fire pit. Then they waited. When Scott, his wife Erica, and their 2 young children, Olivia, age 5, and Nathan, age 3, arrived for Christmas dinner, Michelle confronted her brother. Scott charged at her. She shot him multiple times. She shot Erica twice. Wounded and dying, Erica crawled over a couch and dialed 911. McEnroe took the phone, tore out the batteries, and smashed it. Then he shot Erica in the head. Michelle asked him to finish the children. McEnroe apologized to 5-year-old Olivia and 3-year-old Nathan before shooting them both in the head. Dispatchers had heard arguing on the 911 call and sent deputies. But Michelle had run out to lock the gate. When officers arrived and found it locked, they decided not to investigate further. They left. 6 bodies lay inside. On December 26th, a co-worker found the bodies. When police arrived, Michelle and McEnroe drove up to the property. They were detained immediately. Both confessed. Michelle said she was tired of everybody stepping on her. In April 2016, Michelle Anderson was sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. As of February 2026, she remains incarcerated in Washington state, spending the rest of her life behind bars for murdering 3 generations of her family on Christmas Eve. If these stories affected you, share them. Let others know what humans are capable of. Subscribe to Crime Lens for more deep dives into the cases that changed history and the minds that committed the unthinkable. Stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and remember, monsters don't always look like monsters. This has been Crime Lens. We'll see you in the next one.